Welcome to the sofa. Finally.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful. So, where are we? We're in Argentina, Buenos Aires.
That's right. Here at the Universidad Católica Argentina in Puerto Madero. It's like the waterfront district.
It's beautiful.
An old waterfront district that's been renovated here in Buenos Aires. Sticky weather, but nevertheless, a pleasure.
No, it was nice. It was nice. Yesterday was nice too. It's at least not rainy.
The thing is that Buenos Aires is on the river. You can't really see the river. It doesn't face the river. It doesn't have the river visually there. You know, like in Montevideo in Uruguay, the river is everywhere.
Okay.
The river is everywhere here too. It's just behind some buildings. So you feel it. It's a swamp.
But you know what? I had a wonderful time in Buenos Aires. I spent the last month here and the weather was perfect. Nothing to complain, even better than Rio. Well, it was before.
Yeah, I really enjoyed coming to Buenos Aires for the Vamos Juntos conference too. Checked out some tango music, local cuisine. It's just been a lot of fun.
Speaking of tango, yesterday you organized a beautiful cocktail. It was fantastic with the tango and everything.
They tried to drag me in, and I've danced before. I've danced.
You were hiding.
I danced with Renato Beninato and Eddie Arrieta in Saudi Arabia to the Saudi music. I can do a cumbia or a cuarteto or a chamamé, maybe a samba, but I cannot do tango. It's such a sophisticated work of art. They were trying to drag me in, but I held off.
My husband went to this experience with a Grammy-nominated singer. She's a tango singer, yes.
Wow.
And her husband is an expert in tango. And he was explaining that tango originally was, the dance was between two men because it was so raunchy. That no woman.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And then only, sex workers started doing it. And then it went to Paris and it became huge in Paris. And only then it was accepted by society here. But before it was like, dockside, very dirty places.
Yeah, it certainly started in some rough dance halls.
Yeah.
And then it, crossed the world.
It's amazing. I love it. And it was the two yesterday dancing were pretty fantastic.
Argentina has made many cultural contributions to the world. I mean, if you think about it, the second most reproduced image on this planet after Jesus Christ is a very similar image of Che Guevara looking sexy in the 60s with kind of Jesus Christ-like hairstyle. That's the second most reproduced image on this planet.
I had no idea.
And then, of course, we have Maradona, we have Messi.
And Evita,
Pope Francis. I could go on.
Pope Francis, of course. Francis, yeah, because the
Francisco, he was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires before he became Pope.
Because the auditorium here is John Paul. It's not Pope Francis.
That's right. That's right. But this, the auditorium is, because we're at the Universidad Católica Argentina, so there's a big cross on the wall behind you when you're speaking. Kind of intimidating if you ask me. But the auditorium is Pope John Paul II, and the building is Pope Francis.
Oh, the building. Perfect.
There you go. We got the popes.
And Argentina, this is the fourth edition of Vamos Juntos.
That's right. We did Rio de Janeiro the first time. There was 55 people. It was meant to be like an executive retreat, a small gathering, and it boomed to 55. And then we jumped to the west of Latin America to Lima, Peru, in the seaside location. Absolutely beautiful view, beautiful food. And we went to 155 people.
Oh my God.
And then we went north to Mexico City. It's a huge city, the biggest city in the Spanish-speaking world. And that was fantastic.
It wasn't so much juntos, it was separado.
Oh yeah. It was like, how do we get together in such a big place? And that was a wonderful event. We also had 155 people showcasing the different cultures and cuisines and musics of Latin America. And now we came south to Buenos Aires, also showcasing local food. We've had a lot of empanadas, we've had asado, and been listening to tango music. And we've jumped to 180 attendees,
oh my God,
which I think is absolutely amazing. These are challenging times to organize events, 180 attendees.
And the sponsors too. You said it is a record number of sponsors.
Yeah, we were absolutely blown away by the support we receive from sponsors. So we have sponsors that come back for 4 times in a row, like Memo Q and Plunet, Multilingual Magazine. We also form partnerships with Women in Localization, Translators Without Borders. But we also had new sponsors that, came out of the blue, like XTM and Phrase, which I think is fantastic.
Local and not necessarily local. I know there are companies from outside. I know that, yeah.
So we had 24 sponsors.
Oh my God.
And a sold out exhibit hall with exhibitors from Germany, from the US, from Argentina. So yeah, it's really, it's been really important because sponsors and exhibitors provide the financial backbone of any event.
Yeah.
And I know people who organize events have been struggling, particularly to get sponsors in these times. So we're extremely happy and we really appreciate their support.
And do you think the success is because of Latin America, the organization? I think it's mostly the organization. You've been doing a great job bringing people, good.
And persistent.
Nice.
No, I think when the sponsors saw that we had Natalie Kelly as a keynote, we had Elizabeth Miranda as a keynote, and Juan Santiago as a keynote, they realized that it was going to be a really classy event. And they said, we don't want to miss out on this. Also, Argentina has long had a prominent role in the industry, especially on the production side, project managers, engineers, graphic designers, interpreting schedulers, localizers. Argentina's long been there in terms of the production side of the industry. So, and they just, for example, mentioned the Machine Translation Association of the Americas, and 2 of the board members are now from Argentina. So, it's amazing what's going on. There's a lot going on in Argentina.
So I can ask you this question because you're not originally from here, and that will be my next question. But before I ask that, does Argentina have a higher level of education? I spoke about that with Stefan, I think, at some point. I think when he was promoting the conference, he did the video. But I have the feeling that this is why the industry flourished here. I think, people are a lot of bilingual people, I think more than any other country in Latin America. But there is something else. Why do you think Argentina is probably the hub for Latin America in terms of localization?
Well, I think Argentina is a really tough country to live in and to operate in, to work in as an independent linguist or business owner. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And the university system, there's a whole ecosystem of public universities that are basically free, and private universities that are affordable. For example, the Universidad Católica has the degree in translation studies, and it costs a whopping $2,500 per year.
What?
Yes. So you think about what the cost of education is in North America, and this is a glitzy university. So that means that Argentina has a high number of university students and university graduates per capita. And translation has long been a cornerstone of Argentinian society. It's like everybody seems to have a cousin who's a translator or a cousin who is a psychologist. There's lots of translators and lots of psychologists in Argentina. I don't know what the connection is, but
apparently it's the largest number of therapists per capita in the world. So,
they must be messed up.
Probably translators too.
But it's true. And the tradition of teaching translation is been in place for at least 70 years. And if you look at it, for example, there are 30 universities in Argentina teaching, public and private, that is, teaching translation and interpreting.
Oh,
30.
wow.
And then there are tertiary institutes, like community colleges, if you like, also teaching. And so, there is a rich ecosystem. Okay. Kind of like in India when it comes to tech education, for example.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense. And again, what brought you here? You came all the way from New Zealand, which is across the world here.
New Zealand is a long way away. When I got my degree in modern languages in New Zealand, there was just like nothing going on in translation. It was a great University of Auckland, but there was nothing going on. So it was a Bachelor of Arts, a BA, bugger all is what people would call it. And you had to make your own road. And my road took me here. I married an Argentinian, divorced an Argentinian, married another Argentinian, divorced another Argentinian. So I'm like you. I like getting married.
I love getting married.
And now I have 4 Argentinian children. So
oh my God.
there's like no way I'm leaving. But, my work does enable me to transcend Argentina. I mean, last year I went to Ethiopia, I went to Tanzania, I went to South Africa, I went to Turkey, I went to everywhere in Scandinavia. So my work does take me to exotic, in inverted commas, locations. And that's one of the things I like about it the most. I live in Argentina, which is exotic in itself, but I also travel the world. So there you go. I'm lucky.
That's really nice. In my presentation yesterday, I said that in Japan, as you said, if you make it in Argentina, but I think it extends to Latin America. And I was talking about the capeless heroes that we are, which is, we don't have the institutional supports that companies in the Northern Hemisphere have. What is the situation with New Zealand? I don't know many companies. I know Straker.
I don't know much about New Zealand. I've been living in Latin America for so long, but I know that the ecosystem is much stronger in New Zealand now than it was when I was, I graduated university in 1997. So we were using word processors, and a large project was a 10-page project. So, we've come a long way. You got to look at the whole movie when you talk about where we're at as an industry. Not just the photo of today. I mean, when I graduated, as I said, 10 pages was a big project. We would go to the library to research terminology. I mean, so we've come a long way. We've come a long way. We charged a lot more per word or charged more per hour as interpreters, but we have a lot more work. We produce a lot more than we did those days. So that I'm a believer that, technology has helped us multiply our productivity and it's been an interesting ride.